Welcome back, everybody, to the Deep Dive. This time we're going deep on the World Economic Forum.
The WEF.
Yeah, the WEF. You know, that Davos thing.
Yeah, Davos, yeah.
And you guys sent in some really interesting sources for this one. I think we're going to be going a little bit beyond just the typical headlines.
Yeah, you gave us quite the challenge. We have Reddit threads. We have news articles about Trump at the WEF in 2025.
Oh, yeah.
And then we even have the transcript of the speech that he gave.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get into that.
It's quite the set.
So the goal here is to use all the sources that you guys sent in and try to give you a well-rounded picture of what the WEF is all about.
Yeah.
And we've got some really good sources here. We have those Reddit threads, which is, you know, kind of the voice of the people.
Yeah, the people's voice.
We've got news coverage of Trump's appearance at Davos, which was kind of a surprise to everybody.
A big surprise.
And then we've got his unfiltered views straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
That's right.
Straight from the transcript itself.
Yeah, it's like we're piecing together a puzzle, you know? We have all these different perspectives
Totally.
on the World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
From the everyday Redditor to a former president.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what makes it so fun, right? So let's start with the voice of the people, Reddit. We're looking at threads from all sorts of communities.
Yeah.
Canadian politics, futurology, even some meme-filled corners of the internet. It's a real mixed bag of opinions and perspectives.
It's great because you get a sense of, you know, how the WEF is viewed
Right.
by people outside of these sort of elite circles.
Totally, totally. And Reddit does not hold back.
No, they don't.
Let me tell you. Some users are comparing the WEF to, get this, the Illuminati.
Oh, wow.
They're talking about hidden agendas and like a global shadow government controlling everything.
Wow.
So, you know, we're not here to delve into conspiracy theories.
Oh, you know?
But it's important to understand that sentiment.
Absolutely. It shows that there is like a fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
That the World Economic Forum is somehow overstepping its bounds and kind of dictating
Right.
policy.
Totally. They see them as this mysterious, powerful entity
Yeah.
pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Mhm.
And that anxiety is really echoed in some of the Canadian politics threads.
Especially there
Especially there.
with the Canadian government's relationship with the WEF.
Yeah, one user was like furious.
Oh, really?
Yeah, furious. I'm paraphrasing here, but they basically said, our politicians are more concerned with pleasing Davos
Right.
than serving their own people.
Wow. Yeah. That's a sentiment we see a lot
Yeah.
with these types of organizations.
Yeah. And then you've got the meme makers injecting humor
Yeah.
and skepticism into the mix.
Right.
I saw the "you'll own nothing and you'll be happy" quote everywhere, often paired with people eating bugs.
Of course.
You know, clearly some people are taking this whole thing with
Okay.
a grain of salt.
They are, but, you know, even in those jokes, I think there's a kernel of truth, right? That people are seeing the world change so rapidly, economic uncertainty,
Yeah.
the future being shaped by forces that they don't understand. And, you know, they use humor as a coping mechanism.
Totally.
It's a way to process all of that anxiety.
Exactly. So we've got this swirling mix of anxieties and suspicions about the WE, and now let's throw another ingredient into the mix.
What's that?
Donald Trump's 2025 appearance at Davos.
Oh, yeah. Talk about an unexpected twist.
This is just days after his second inauguration, and he chooses to address the WEF remotely.
Interesting.
It was a move that raised eyebrows, to say the least.
What's the reaction like?
Oh, you can imagine the collective gasp from the Davos elite.
I bet.
You know, here you have this powerful figure
Right.
who's known for his America First agenda
Right.
and his, you know, disdain for globalist institutions. And suddenly he's appearing on their screens.
On their screens at Davos.
Just like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
One of the news articles that you sent, the AP news article, I think it was.
Oh, right. Yeah. Really captured the atmosphere perfectly.
How so?
There was a mix of amusement, disbelief, even a little bit of fear. People weren't sure what to expect from Trump.
Right.
And Trump, as always, did not disappoint when it came to making bold statements.
Of course not. What did he say?
One quote that jumped out at me was, "We don't need their oil and gas. We have more than anybody."
Who's they?
He was referring to Canada.
Oh, Canada.
And I just imagine like some awkward tension in the room after that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But it's classic Trump.
It is, yeah. You know, asserting his dominance.
Yeah.
Playing hardball, not being afraid of confrontation.
Right.
Even with allies. But, you know, it also raises the question, what was his objective here?
Yeah.
What was he trying to do by addressing the WEF? Was this a genuine attempt to engage, or was it just, a way to kind of push his own agenda?
I think that's a great question, and to really answer that, we need to go deeper.
Okay.
And thankfully, you provided a transcript of his actual speech.
So we get to hear Trump unfiltered.
Excellent.
What do you say? Are you ready to dive into Trump's world?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, so we're looking at the transcript of Trump's speech to the World Economic Forum in 2025, just days after his second inauguration.
It's vintage Trump right out of the gate.
Oh, yeah. Bold pronouncements,
Yeah.
a little bit of self-congratulation, and a healthy dose of America First rhetoric.
He doesn't waste any time celebrating his victory, calling it a revolution of common sense.
Right.
And, he paints a picture of America poised for greatness,
Oh, yeah.
which he contrasts sharply with what he describes as the failures of the previous administration.
Oh, he really lays into his predecessor.
Oh,
Blames them for everything.
sir, everything.
Economic stagnation to a nation-wrecking energy policy.
It's all about setting the stage, right?
Yeah.
Establishing himself as the savior who's going to come in and fix everything.
Exactly.
It's very effective rhetoric.
It is.
By highlighting these perceived failures, he creates a sense of urgency,
Right.
which then justifies his own, sometimes radical policies.
Totally. And then he dives right into those policies, right?
Yeah.
Outlining his key priorities: deregulation, tax cuts, energy independence, and putting America first in all trade deals.
Mm-hmm. It's a familiar playbook,
Yeah.
but he delivers it with, that signature Trump bravado.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where I think the connection to the WEF and global trade becomes really apparent, right?
Right.
He uses this platform, this gathering of global elites to basically lay down the gauntlet.
He's saying the old rules don't apply anymore.
Exactly. America's going to do what's best for America, even if it means shaking things up.
Right.
He specifically calls out the EU.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. He accuses them of unfair trade practices,
All right.
excessive taxes, targeting American tech giants. He rails against the VAT tax, tariffs on American goods, and antitrust actions against companies like Apple and Google.
What's his issue with the antitrust stuff?
He feels like they're unfairly targeting American companies. And it's a clear message, right? The days of America being taken advantage of are over.
So it's a shift then
Yeah,
towards a more protectionist nationalist approach,
exactly.
which, kind of goes against the
Yeah.
principles of global cooperation that the
Totally.
WEF often represents.
Totally. And you know what? Canada doesn't escape his scrutiny either.
Oh, no. What do you say about Canada?
He complains about the trade deficit, throws in a joke about Canada becoming a U.S. state,
Oh, my gosh.
and once again emphasizes American energy dominance.
Yeah.
We don't need their oil and gas.
Right.
We have our own. We have more than anybody. It's a reminder that even close allies aren't immune to this America First agenda.
Yeah, it's interesting how he frames international relations as this zero-sum game.
Yeah.
Like it's all about winning, getting the best deal, even if it means,
Right.
putting pressure on your allies, potentially straining those relationships.
Totally. And speaking of strained relationships, he takes aim at NATO.
NATO. What does he say about NATO?
He demands that member countries increase their defense spending to 5% of GDP.
5%.
5% of GDP.
That's a lot.
He argues that the U.S. has been carrying too much of the burden for too long.
Okay, so again, it's this theme
Yeah.
of self-reliance, rejecting what he sees as unfair burdens
Right.
placed on America.
Exactly. But then, and this is where things get interesting,
Okay.
he expresses a desire to meet with Putin
With Putin.
to try and broker peace in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, he calls the war a carnage and laments the loss of life. It's this moment of unexpected diplomacy, this
Yeah.
flicker of compassion amidst all the tough talk
Right.
and the America First rhetoric.
It suggests that maybe even Trump, with his strongman persona,
Yeah.
recognizes the human cost of conflict
Right.
and the need for peaceful resolution.
Exactly.
That even the most rigid ideologies can be flexible sometimes.
Right. When confronted with real-world complexities, it's
Yeah.
a good reminder of that.
For sure.
He goes on to talk about wanting to denuclearize both Russia and the U.S.,
Wow.
even bringing China into the conversation. It's bold.
It is.
It's ambitious, and it speaks to Trump's belief in his own ability to negotiate and broker deals on the world stage.
He loves that deal maker role.
Oh, yeah.
The person who can cut through all the red tape and get things done.
Yeah, remember that line about the energy permits in Louisiana?
Oh, yeah. What'd he say?
I got them done in less than a week.
Classic.
It's all about projecting that image of competence, right? And
Totally.
indecisiveness.
Decisiveness, yeah.
And that confidence, it extends to his relationship with China.
Okay.
He predicts a very good relationship under his leadership,
Right.
but emphasizes the need for fairness in trade.
Fairness, right.
We don't want to take advantage, he says.
Right.
But we've been having massive deficits with China.
Right. So it's a balancing act
It is, yeah.
between his America First agenda
Right.
and the need for these strategic partnerships in a globalized world.
It's tricky.
It is tricky. And speaking of tricky, there's one more part of the speech I want to touch on.
Okay.
It relates back to those anxieties we saw on Reddit about the erosion of individual freedoms.
Right.
So Trump talks about signing an executive order to stop government censorship,
Okay.
declaring that no longer will our government label the speech of our own citizens as misinformation or disinformation.
That's a pretty big statement.
It is.
Especially given the concerns about online censorship and the power of these tech companies.
Totally. And he goes even further.
Further.
Oh, yeah. He wants to abolish all discriminatory diversity, equity, and inclusion nonsense
Oh, wow.
in both the government and the private sector.
Okay, so this is pure Trump, right?
Oh, yeah.
Appealing to his base,
Yeah.
tapping into that sense of grievance
Yeah.
among those who feel that, these initiatives have gone too far.
Yeah.
Or even discriminatory against certain groups.
It's a very calculated move.
It is, right. He's playing on those cultural divisions, framing himself as the champion of those who feel silenced or marginalized by what they see as a woke agenda.
It's powerful rhetoric.
It is.
But, it also risks further polarizing the country and deepening those divisions.
Man, what a speech, huh?
Yeah, definitely a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, classic Trump. Always knows how to make an entrance, even if it's just through a video screen.
That's right. But, beyond all the theatrics and the bold pronouncements, there are some real-world implications here, especially for our listeners.
Right. Let's bring it home. How could Trump's vision, if it becomes reality, actually affect you, like in your everyday life?
Well, think back to those tariffs he threatened on Canadian goods.
Oh, yeah.
If those actually go into effect, you could see higher prices on lumber, cars,
Oh, yeah.
maybe even maple syrup.
So that DIY project might get a little more expensive.
Exactly. And that new car smell might be a bit further out of reach.
Yeah, true.
And then there's the whole energy independence push.
Yeah.
He wants to ramp up U.S. production, which, could mean lower gas prices, at least in the short term.
Less pain at the pump. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, sure, but it's not that simple.
Right.
Increased production often comes with environmental consequences.
Right. We got to think long term, too.
Yeah. What about the impact on climate change? That's a global issue. It affects everyone.
It's a tough one, right? Short-term economic gain versus long-term sustainability for the planet.
Exactly. And those Reddit threads you sent?
Yeah.
They show that people are definitely aware of this dilemma.
Oh, yeah, they are. Very aware.
It's a growing awareness that we can't just prioritize economic growth
Right.
and ignore the planet.
You got to find that balance.
Yeah, sustainable path forward.
Totally. And on that note, let's not forget about AI, automation,
Right.
all that.
Huge topic.
Huge topic, yeah. Trump sees AI as a key area of competition with China, and his policies could really accelerate development in that sector.
Which, could lead to incredible breakthroughs, advancements that could change everything.
Right.
But it also raises concerns about job displacement.
Right. Like those Redditors worried about robots taking your jobs.
Yeah, it's a legitimate concern.
Totally. As AI gets more and more sophisticated, some jobs are just going to become automated.
Right.
That's inevitable.
It is. So the challenge then is to adapt.
Okay. How do we do that?
Well, develop the skills and knowledge that are going to be needed for the jobs of the future.
Okay.
It's about lifelong learning, staying ahead of the curve.
Right.
Embracing the changes instead of being afraid of them.
Okay, I like that. So we've talked trade wars, energy, AI, all that.
Yeah.
Now let's get back to the main thing.
The WEF.
The big question.
The big question, yeah.
Is the World Economic Forum this force for good, this, shadowy group controlling everything, or is it somewhere in between?
It's fascinating how these sources paint such different pictures.
Right.
You have Reddit comparing them to the Illuminati. You have these news articles talking about them being this global forum for discussion.
Right.
And then you have Trump using their platform.
To push his own agenda.
Yeah. That's a reminder that everyone's perception is different.
Yeah.
And it's often shaped by our own biases.
Right. We all have our own biases.
We do.
And it's easy to get stuck in those echo chambers, surrounded by information that just reinforces what we already think.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to think critically.
Right. Think critically.
Step back, look at all these different sources, and then form your own conclusion.
Exactly. Don't just accept the headlines. Don't get swept up in the, the most extreme viewpoints.
Right.
Do your own research.
Yeah. Look at the evidence.
Yeah.
Be open to challenging what you think.
Yeah. It's not black and white, right?
Most things aren't.
Yeah. The WEF is complicated.
Yeah.
There are valid criticisms, but there's also value in having a place where world leaders can talk about global challenges.
It's about nuance.
Nuance, yeah.
It's not about blindly supporting or condemning.
Right.
It's about understanding the complexities and then forming your own informed opinion.
And that's what we hoped you got out of this deep dive.
Yeah, we just want to give you the tools,
Yeah.
the information to navigate this complicated world.
Totally. So as you continue to learn about this, think about this. How can you stay informed? How can you be part of the conversation? How can you make your voice heard when there are all these global forces at play?
That's a great question to think about.
It is. It is. Keep asking questions, keep digging deeper, and please keep sending us your sources.
Yeah, we love them.
We love them. And until next time, happy diving.